Welcome to the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Sewell. The Wellness Enclave will explore emotional health and its impact on everyday life. In the Enclave, we will address how emotional health is connected to other parts of your life, such as physical health, relationships, spirituality, and even decision making. Our goal in the Wellness Enclave is to help you become a healthier, happier you through motivation, education, and innovation. And now, the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Sewell.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Donna Sewell, where emotional health and wellness is our top priority. Today, we'll be talking about overcoming negative messages. And again, since it's just going to be me today, I may call on my engineer, Mr. Greg, to assist me with my presentation and my education to you. Again, you're in the Enclave with Dr. Donna Sewell, and we'll be talking about overcoming negative messages. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Gifted and black, oh, what a lovely, precious dream. Open your heart to what I mean, to what I mean. 'Cause you know, in this whole wide world, a million boys and girls who are young, gifted and black. That's a fact. Oh, yes, it
is. Welcome back, everyone, to the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Donna Sewell. Today, we'll be talking about overcoming negative messages. In the times that we're living in right now, I think it is I think this piece right here is going to be very important. It seems as though we're being bombarded with a lot of negativity. We see it every day on the news, whether it's from families, social media. It just seems like there's just a lot of negativity. As a result, these things can impact a person's self-esteem. So I'm going to talk about these things a little bit today. As always, if we run out of time, you can always go to my website and listen to the show and or find some more information on there as well. My website is www.m as in Mary, E, enterprises.net. So, again, that's www.meenterprises.net, or you can just go to the Google search engine and pull up Mind's Eye Enterprises. So, when I talk about a negative message, I'm talking about any communication that is transmitted to a person that's perceived to be unpleasant. So, in other words, if Mr. Greg decides to say anything to me and we're having a conversation, we're communicating with one another, or it can be written, it can be oral or written, and he may say something that I not only disagree with, it may actually hurt my feelings. So any communication that I find or that I perceive or the receiver perceives as being unpleasant, that's what I'm calling a negative message. Negative messages are communicated in a number of ways. They can be communicated directly, indirectly, intentionally, unintentionally, verbally, and non-verbally. When these messages come from outside sources, we begin to believe them. Over time, what happens is these messages stop being someone's opinion of you, and they become our belief about ourselves. So in other words, we take on other people's opinions, and we begin to define ourselves by other people's opinions. In addition to defining ourselves by other people's opinions, what this does when we hear these negative messages time and time again, it also takes away our power to make well thought out decisions. It prevents us from growing as a person, and most importantly, it disrupts our peace, our happiness, and our right to a better quality of life. So, one of the things I want to jump into are the culprits, and then from there I'm going to talk about negative messages, and sometimes when we hear a negative message from someone else, what we're actually thinking to ourselves of what we actually hear. So, of course, you've heard me mention this before. Your prime suspect or your prime culprit for passing along these negative messages, family members, and that includes spouses. That includes sometimes your children. That includes mothers to their children. That includes the whole gamut, cousins or whatever. And a lot of times the reasons that these people are the primary culprits, our family members, is because we spend a lot of time with them. As a result, a lot of times family members make statements to us, sometimes meaning to be hurtful, other times it's unintentional, but we're continuously hearing these things over time period. Or we're continuously being treated a certain way, and what it does is it leaves a lasting impression on us. Media. Media is also a big culprit, particularly, and I'm not going to harp on this, but particularly for women and people of color, because in many instances we are presented a certain way over and over and over again. As a result, a lot of times, especially with the younger children, they start believing the images that they see on the media. Also, in many instances in the media, the definition of what beauty is, and that falls into not only people of color but women as well. The definition of beauty is something that has been problematic for years. As a result, you can see how it's impacting. You can look around and see how it's impacting African Americans and women specifically. Another example is friends, significant others, definitely perpetrators of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, bullies, also supervisors. Supervisors can be extremely negative and cause you to feel like you are not only non-productive, but like you're pretty much the dumbest person in the world. If you have a supervisor who is constantly telling you that you're not doing your job correctly, or they're constantly correcting you, constantly ridiculing you, then as a result, you begin to feel like you're incompetent. That can really play on a person's psyche. Religious entities. That can be a culprit or a carrier of a negative message. I am a very spiritual person, and I find my spirituality from God. With that being said, when I talk about religious entities, I'm talking about how a lot of individuals interpret doctrines of organized religion. And the reason I say that is because in the LGBTQ community, of course, a lot of individuals, depending upon what church they were raised in, a lot of individuals have been taught that whatever their sexual orientation is, if it's outside of heterosexuality, then they're wrong. And not only are they wrong, but then they're not going to be loved. That's not for anybody to judge except for the higher power. That doesn't have anything to do with what this person is saying in the pulpit. But if that person continuously makes that statement, if I have family members who believe in that particular doctrine as well, then it's going to cause me to feel bad about myself. That's just one example. And also, our mistakes are culprits and carriers of negative messages, because a lot of times we allow our mistakes to define us. As a result, what happens is we feel like we are our mistake. Usually a mistake is just a bad choice. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It simply means that you're a bad choice most of the time. So now I'm going to give you some examples of negative messages and how we translate them over time. So what I may hear from others on a regular basis is that you're worthless. So what I hear from that is, I don't deserve happiness or anything good. I may hear a family member or someone that I may be attracted to say to me, you're not pretty enough. So I just hear flat out that I'm ugly. That's something that I will carry with me. From perpetrators of abuse, you often hear remarks such as, who else would want you? What I hear is that I am unworthy of being loved. Now, let me tell you why these things are very important, because although I'm hearing this from one person, what happens is I carry this negative message out into, I carry it or extend it to all of my relationships. So it doesn't matter who said this to me, then I carry this to all of my relationships. And a lot of times there are certain behaviors that will manifest, which I will get into momentarily. Another negative message that you may hear is that you'll never amount to anything. Again, which goes into you feeling that you're worthless, or something that parents do, and this is, again, unintentional, or family members will do. You may have an uncle or an aunt or a mother or a father who is not the best role model. They may not be the best example. As a result, what in an effort for your loved ones to try to prevent you from taking on characteristics of those individuals who are not the best role models, what they may say to you is, you're just like your dad, or you're going to end up just like your mom. That right there, if I'm already seeing that person as a negative role model, or I'm hearing you talk about, or a negative role model, or I'm hearing you talk about this person in a negative manner, then automatically when I hear you say this over and over and over again, what sinks in my head is, well, guess what? I'm going to be just like my mom anyway, or I'm going to be just like my dad anyway. So when you project that on me or on a person, what happens is that person begins to believe it. And so they stop trying. What they do is they just surrender to, okay, well, I'm not going to be any good anyway, because that's what they think about my mom or dad. So, and that's what they keep saying about me. So always be careful about that. If a person tells you that you're dumb all the time, or that you can't do anything, that's what you're actually hearing. I'm dumb. Person tells you need to lose weight, you're going to hear you're fat and ugly. And it's all right to sit up and tell somebody, hey, maybe we need to work on going walking or do some things like that. But if you're constantly just telling somebody you need to lose weight, and when you're telling them you're turning your nose up as you're saying it, they automatically going to feel unappealing, fat, ugly. So watch those things. And a lot of times people will tell you that not to be harmful, but to help you. But it's a way that you do that. Because I have news for you. For people who have picked up weight, or for people who are overweight, they already know they're fat. They don't need for you to tell them they need to lose weight, or they don't need for you to tell them that they're morbidly obese. So when you speak to them in a kinder manner. And again, this comes from persons who are perpetrators of abuse quite often. You're damaged goods. In essence, what you're hearing is, I'm not worthy of being in a healthy relationship. So what may happen is I may get out of a relationship with an individual who tells me over and over again that I'm damaged goods. And it may not even be a relationship. It may be a perpetrator of sexual abuse. So what happens is when I am approached by a person, or I am approached with the possibility of a healthy relationship, a lot of times what will happen is I may sabotage it simply because I'm hearing that record replay in my mind over and over again. You're damaged goods. So I'm believing what this person has said to me, and so I'll sabotage because in my mind I'm saying, you know what, whether it's subconscious or whether it's conscious, I'm saying I'm not deserving of this relationship right here. So and that's very important. So let's move to some instances and some situations and events that can occur to cause us to have adverse reactions. Mr. Greg, do I have enough time for that? How much time I have right here?
You have time.
Okay. So I'm going to get into those things, and then when we come back, we'll talk about ways to get on the road to restoration and help you have more of a positive thought process. So examples of events that can occur that can cause us to have adverse reactions. Abuse. Naturally, physically, whether it's physical, sexual, and or emotional. So possible adverse reactions or negative reactions to that would be anger. So that means me walking around regularly, just being angry and not knowing why I'm angry. Unstable, it can cause unstable relationships as well. Particularly with those who are of the same gender as your perpetrator, and basically just a general distrust of others or being defensive. Now, let me move back to when I say particularly with those who are of the same gender as your perpetrator. A lot of times what happens with men and women, if they've had a negative relationship, whether it was physical, sexual, and or emotional abuse, if they've had a negative relationship with a parent. Let's say if a son has a bad relationship with his mom for reasons, maybe his mother was abusive to him, verbally abusive to him. A lot of times it would be very difficult for this young man to be in a relationship with a woman or with a woman who may remind him of his mom, not because of how she speaks, but sometimes even because of how she looks. And so a lot of times what may happen is this person may have problems dealing with women. Same thing women with men. And we don't know why that is going on. And what's going on is, wow, this person is reminding me of my mom or dad, and or just because this was a dominant person in my life. My mother, father, they were a dominant person in my life. I begin to see all men like that or all women like that. So because of that, that causes my relationships to be strained. And that's what I mean by if you have a bad relationship with one person sometimes or a negative event, then you begin to project that up on everything, and it causes your entire lifestyle to be negative. Events and situations that can occur that can cause us to have adverse reactions. A sudden death of a loved one. And especially if you're a person who has dealt with back-to-back sudden deaths, like within 6 to 7 months of one another, and these were people that you were close to. Because then what happens sometimes is we have an inability or an unwillingness to maintain a close relationship because subconsciously we're afraid that, you know what, this person I was very close to died all of a sudden. 6 months ago, another person died. 3 months ago, I was very close to. So I really do not want to feel attached to anyone because if I do, I may get hurt. That person may leave me again. It's almost like an abandonment issue. This person may leave me, and I don't want, or I just don't want to feel that hurt. I just don't want to feel that grief anymore. Unstable or unstable living conditions or unstable financial conditions, such as maybe you were never living with the same family members when you were growing up, living in a household with an addict or alcoholic, or just moving from place to place. What happens then, the reaction that we get from that is because we did not have that stability at whatever point in our lives. It may not necessarily have been when we were growing up. It may have been at some point in our adulthood. But because we experienced that instability, then a lot of times what happens with that is that we have an absolute necessity to have as much control as possible over every aspect of our lives. Every aspect. And that is that's a lot of energy when you try to have control over everything, because the reality is none of us has control over everything in our lives, because I'm sure most of us will probably be millionaires and happy every day. Okay. So But again, that's a negative reaction. When you have that necessity to control everything, then you worry about everything. You don't enjoy life because you're always planning for mistakes and you're always planning for, hey, I can't be out of control ever. So those are some things that will definitely limit you. Okay. And you also have an inability to relax when you're like that. And relaxing is very, very important. And one of the last events or situations that I'm going to mention is the experiencing all of these events that I talked about over a period of time can definitely lead to self-sabotaging because a lot of times all of these events I just named, there are people who have gone through those constantly, believe it or not, in their lives. So they begin to sabotage because they think that anytime something looks as though it's going to happen in your life, happen good in your life, what will happen is you'll get in your own way because you don't want it to be snatched from you. See, you're not used to having that level of happiness or feeling a level of completion. You're not used to those things. So then you're saying to yourself, you know what? This is going too well. So I wonder what's gonna happen next. Something is gonna happen where this is gonna be snatched from me. So let me just go ahead and sabotage it altogether so I don't have to deal with the disappointment, the hurt, the feelings of abandonment. Let me just go ahead and sabotage it. So here's what I would say to you. Here's what I would say to you. If you're a person where every time something good has happened, if you look over your life in the past, maybe say 5 to 10 years, and you start thinking to yourself, every time this was supposed to happen, something else happened. What I would encourage you to do is look back over all of those instances and see if you played a part in it. Because if you look at in 5 years, if you had 5 great opportunities and all of them for some reason didn't pan out, they didn't work out, and it may be because of outside or external forces, but more than likely it's going to have something to do with you and you possibly sabotaged it because you're the common variable in that. And that's okay as long as you recognize it. So once you recognize it, then you can work on how is it that we can move forward. So what we're going to do is go to a quick commercial break, and you've been listening to Dr. Donna Sewell in the Enclave talking about overcoming negative messages. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back and talk about methods that can be utilized on the road to restoration to get over allowing someone else's opinion to define you or allowing an event to define you. We'll be right back.
No more pain, no more pain, no more pain, no more pain, no more drama in my life. No one's gonna make me hurt again. Why'd I play the fool, go through ups and downs, knowing all the time you wouldn't be around. But maybe I like the stress, 'cause I was young and restless, but that was long ago. I don't wanna cry no more. No more pain, no more pain, no more game messing with my mind. No more drama in my life. No one's gonna make me hurt again. No more tears. I'm tired of crying every night. No more fears. I really don't wanna fight. No more drama in my life. I don't ever wanna hurt again. Speak my mind.
Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the Enclave with Dr. Donna Sewell. Today we are talking about overcoming negative messages. So as promised prior to break, I would come back with some methods that can be utilized on the road to restoration. So one is forgiveness of self and or the perpetrator. Now, with this process, this can be a very difficult process. So what you may need to get professional assistance or help with this. You may need to go. This is one of those times you may need to go to therapy, especially if you're dealing with a perpetrator who was violent towards you. It doesn't mean that you're letting them off in terms of what they did to you, but what it does mean is that you are releasing yourself of all of that negative energy. So even if you have to go to therapy to work through your feelings about the perpetrator, all of those things, that is more than fine, because here's the thing: either the perpetrator is incarcerated, dead, or moving on about his or her business. Okay? You are not. You're the one that is being stunted. What you want to do, you don't want that perpetrator to win. What you want to do is be able to move forward with your life and have growth with your life. And again, that can be something that's very difficult. So a lot of times you may need assistance with that. Another thing you want to do is develop a positive support system. If you have people in your life who are negative, then you either need to get rid of them. If it is somebody that you can't get rid of, like a parent or a child, and I'm just being real, a parent or a child, then you may want to limit your communication with that particular individual. But the one thing you want to do is have people around you who will tell you when you're wrong, and even when you get upset and start fussing at them, they'll say, that's okay. When you get that's okay. After the swelling goes down, I'm sure you'll call back. And or if you're mad at them for 3 or 4 months, they'll just say, but if you need anything in those 3 or 4 months, let me know. They're not going to tell you anything to be malicious, but at the end of the day, you need people in your support system that are going to be like that, but at the same time, they're going to be positive. You know, you can talk to them and they can say, hey, what do you want to do? They're not going to judge you. That's what you need. You need people who are moving forward and doing other things and affecting and impacting other people positively. That's the type of energy that you want to be around. So that's the type of support system that I would recommend you look for. Limit or lose contact, and I just talked about with those who have a negative or pessimistic approach to life. Try to change your thought process and be more positive and proactive. Think of what you've learned from your life experiences as opposed to how your life experiences have inconvenienced you. Think about what you have actually learned from those experiences. What I always suggest is to look at your life as a series of lessons that will help you become a stronger and better person. Make a list of your positive character traits and remind yourself of at least 3 of those traits daily. One of the things I realized about adults, especially when I was doing individual therapy or counseling, is that I could ask a person, what do you think you need to improve upon? Without fail, they could give me a list, a rambling list within less than a minute and a half. If I said, hey, what are some of your good character traits? What are some of the things you like about yourself? I got nothing. The one thing I always got was that I was nice whether the person was nice or not. So what are your character traits? What are some things that are good about you? And then look at yourself every day in the mirror and repeat those things to yourself. Understand that you are worthy and that there is some good in you. Okay, I'm getting a 2-minute warning, so I'm going to have to run through this. Participate in activities that give you a sense of relaxation or peace. That could be exercise, prayer, meditation, hobbies, or interest. And remember that in most instances, a mistake reflects a bad choice and not a bad person. So once we stop allowing a mistake or someone else's words or actions to mentally rent space, then we'll begin to see a shift in our energy. The energy may have an essence of empowerment, and when I say empowerment or power, I'm talking about possession of resources that allows an individual to think and do independently. The very nature of this empowerment will allow you to be confident, positive, proactive, objective, and non-judgmental, as well as opening yourself up to improving and encouraging others. And before we leave today, I would like to read a quote by Mother Teresa. And it says, people are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfishness, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have and it will never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. And with that, I would like to say I hope this has helped someone and you guys have a happy and healthy week. Good day.
This has been the Wellness Enclave with Dr. Sewell. Join us each Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. on WWWE The Real 1100 AM. We look forward to growing with you.
Thank you for listening to another Old Fashioned Health Network show on The Real 1100.